Hey everybody, by now I'm sure you've heard about Mark Nuccio's appointment to the Clarinet faculty at Northwestern University. This is huge, so let's talk for a minute about how the news spread, the details of the appointment, and then I'll throw in my own 2 cents about it. The first I heard about it was from Steve Cohen on his own Facebook page. Steve is the professor of clarinet at Northwestern, and last Thursday morning in the 11 o'clock hour he shared this. The Clarinet Studio at Northwestern University welcomes Mark Nuccio to our faculty for next year. More info to come soon. I didn't share this news right away on Clarinet Jobs for a couple reasons. First, earlier that morning I had already put up a post about Western Michigan University's professor job, and if you put more than one post on a Facebook page per day, the algorithm won't distribute it to as many news feeds. I usually put up posts at around 9 a.m. Central Time to optimize the post, and since I'd already done that for the day, I was kind of stuck. Secondly, Steve had the post's privacy settings set to friends only at the time. It's public now. More on that in a minute. A few hours later, Mark shared Steve's post and said, "What an honor to join the faculty at my alma mater." Notice that Mark shared the post publicly, meaning now Steve's post would be visible to Steve's friends and Mark's friends. Facebook's privacy settings are a little bit confusing, but that's what Facebook was telling me at the time. Immediately, people started asking questions, both on the posts and to me privately. This happens all the time. When there's a big piece of news, people want to know more information, but they don't want to ask publicly, so they get in touch with me privately. And I didn't really know what was going on, so I reached out to Steve to ask, mostly because I was curious. At this point, the cat was pretty much out of the bag, so I figured the best thing to do for Clarinet Jobs would be to wait for Northwestern's official announcement, which came out the next day on Friday, November 16th. I didn't get around to sharing it that day, so I waited until Saturday, November 17th, and I put up the post then. As you can see here, the news spread fast. In less than 24 hours, it reached almost 7,000 people, which is above average for a Clarinet Jobs post. Also, by this time, Steve had granted my request to change the original post's privacy settings from friends only to public so that I could share the post from Clarinet Jobs. I didn't end up sharing Steve's post because Northwestern's announcement came out so quickly and I shared that one instead. So this is sort of irrelevant, but I just wanted to make it clear that when people post things to their friends only, I will always ask the people if it's okay to share it publicly, like I did with Anthony McGill last summer when I made that video about the exchange between him and Norman Lebrecht. So for anybody who's accused me of being a TMZ-style gossip column with no regard for people's privacy or sensitive information,
Wrong.
I figured that sharing Northwestern's article would help clear up a lot of the questions that people had, but it's painfully obvious that many people comment on articles without actually reading them. Furthermore, many people, if they're directed to an article, will comment on the article itself rather than going back to Facebook to have the conversation. In this situation, it wasn't an article that you could comment on that was shared, so people, if they had questions, had to go back to Clarinet Jobs to ask them. Mark actually addressed one of these questions. Alexandra Doyle asked, "Oh no, is he leaving UH?" meaning the University of Houston, where Mark also teaches. And Timothy Hanley responded, "Supposedly commuting and doing both," to which Alexandra replied, "Oof." Then Mark said, "Thanks for the concern. I am dedicated to both UH and the Houston Symphony. It will be a nice and busy challenge doing all three." The very end of Northwestern's announcement has a very crucial piece of information. Check this out. The Beanan School of Music Clarinet faculty also includes Stephen Cohen, Associate Professor and Coordinator of the Winds and Percussion Program, Leslie Grimm, Senior Lecturer and Wind Chamber Music Coordinator, and J. Laurie Bloom, Senior Lecturer, who will retire at the conclusion of the 2018-19 academic year. So with all the information we've just looked at, it's pretty easy to see that Mark has been appointed to fill the upcoming vacancy created by Laurie's pending retirement. Mark and Steve both confirmed with me privately that that's what's happening. There are still some details yet to be determined about how often Mark will visit and how many students he's going to teach, but those will unfold over time. So those are the facts, and everything henceforth in this video is my opinion. So the obvious question is, why Mark Nuccio? Doesn't he have enough going on being principal clarinet of the Houston Symphony and teaching at the University of Houston? Couldn't they have found somebody from Chicago to plug the hole? This whole long-distance teacher thing is not entirely without precedent. John Manasseh's been doing it for a while at Eastman, and Dan Gilbert has a similar setup at the University of Michigan. And it's also not entirely unprecedented in the city of Chicago, where St. Louis Symphony principal flutist Mark Sparks comes up once a week or so to teach at DePaul. Plus, this appears to be a temporary thing anyway. This is a big win for Northwestern. Mark is a living legend, and he's an alum of the school, having gotten his master's degree there with Robert Marcellus in 1985 and 1986. It's also a big win for Steve Cohen for making this happen, and it's a big win for Mark being invited to such a big appointment. It'll also help Northwestern because the excitement will generate fundraising opportunities, more applications, good public relations, all that good stuff. If there's a loser here, it's the University of Houston. This appointment is going to take a lot of Mark's time, and that time is going to have to come from somewhere, be it his family life or his leisure time, or maybe part of his commitment at the University of Houston. It's also tough for the University of Houston because if you just want to study with Mark Nuccio and you have the choice between going to Northwestern and the University of Houston, you probably want to go to Northwestern because it's got a better reputation, it's arguably in a better city, and the local orchestra is more prestigious, so that could be tough. However, it could be good for students entering the University of Houston because if a student were to get accepted at both Northwestern and the University of Houston, they could use the Northwestern acceptance as leverage in order to get more scholarship money from Houston, so who knows? This is all part of the game, and as much as I hate the game, anybody who wants to do this for a living has got to learn to play it, so I'm trying to help you all with that. It'll be exciting to see how it all unfolds. Mark's on the record as saying he's excited about the challenge, and I think it's a pretty safe bet that things will be fine. I don't know Mark that well, but I know him and his career trajectory well enough to know that he's faced a lot of challenges and always seems to come out on top, so my money's on him. Alright, that's it. Congrats to everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.
My kind of town, Chicago is my kind of